This video is brought to you by Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragons, the book that lets you play as a dragon. Written by Pathfinder veteran Mark Seifter, this book adds over 45 new dragon playable ancestries to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now available at battlezoo.com. Hey everybody, Dave here with another Pathfinder rule reminder for you, and today's question is, what do you do when an enemy is both resistant to and weak to the same attack? How do you calculate the damage? And this is a little bit complex, but I do want to say to everybody out there who's watching this, especially new players, the exact scenario I want to walk you through today is for illustrative purposes, and in 99.999% of the cases you won't have to worry about this, but this is a situation that it is possible to come up in games, so I want to break it down. So there's going to be a fair amount of math involved. Let's bring up a blank screen to break down all the numbers we'll be looking at. So first, for this example, we're going to say that the enemy has resistance to bludgeoning 10, but they are also weak to fire 10 and weak to silver 3. A player hits this enemy and they're wielding a +1 silver flaming warhammer. So this weapon is going to deal 1d8 silver bludgeoning damage and 1d6 fire damage. For the purposes of this example, just to keep everything clean, I'm not going to include any strength modifiers to the damage, but if this person did have a strength modifier, that would be applied to the 1d8 silver bludgeoning damage. So that player makes their rolls, 1d8 and 1d6, they end up getting 4 points of silver bludgeoning damage and 5 points of fire damage. So the question is, what is the final amount of damage that is dealt to this enemy when they are resistant 10 to bludgeoning and they are weak to both fire and silver? The common answer to this would be, well, it's simple math. You just add up all the things and you subtract all the things. So you might say 4 points of silver bludgeoning damage plus 5 points of fire damage equals 9 points of damage. So we take that 9 points of damage that's dealt and then subtract out the resistances and add in the weaknesses. So 9 minus 10 bludgeoning, and then plus 10 fire, and then plus 3 silver. That comes to a total of 12 points of damage. But that's not the correct answer, and there's two key reasons why. The first of those is, even though this is one attack, there are two separate pools of damage. We have one instance of damage that's 1d6 silver bludgeoning damage, and then we have a separate instance of damage, which is 1d6 fire damage. Those two pools of damage need to be kept separate through the calculation. The second thing you need to be aware of is there is a process to how you add and subtract your damage. There's sort of an order of operations when it comes to these calculations. The first thing you do is you apply immunities. The second thing you do is apply weaknesses, and then after all the weaknesses are applied, then you apply the resistances. We don't have any immunities, so we'll skip over that step and go straight to applying weaknesses. There are two different pools of damage, and they are both modified by weaknesses. The first pool of damage is 4 points of silver bludgeoning damage, and this creature is weak to silver 3, so we add 3 to that for a total of 7 silver bludgeoning damage. And the second pool of damage is fire damage. 5 points of fire damage. The enemy is weak to fire 10. We add that 10 and 5 together to 15 fire damage. Now we don't add the 15 and 7 together yet and call that 22 points of damage. We still need to keep these as separate pools because of the next step, which is applying resistances. 7 points of silver bludgeoning damage, minus 10 because this creature has bludgeoning resistance of 10, gives us, well, it either gives us a -3 or a 0 damage, which is a moot distinction because any way you cut it, the bludgeoning resistance completely wipes out the silver bludgeoning damage that was inflicted in this attack. Now we go to the second pool of damage, which is 15 fire damage. 15 fire damage is unaffected by resistances, so it carries through, which means the total amount of damage done for this attack is 15 damage, not 12, And the reason again is because we have two separate pools of damage. So the -3 that would be applied to the bludgeoning does not feed into and take away from the amount of fire damage. So that's it for today. I know that that was a little bit of a cumbersome and math-heavy calculation, but again, just remember, damage pools are separate. Typically, on an attack like this, you're going to have one pool that represents the physical damage applied by the attack, and a separate pool of damage that's applied by the energy damage of an attack. And you also got to remember that when you do these calculations, you apply your immunities first, then you apply all of your weaknesses, and finally you apply all of your resistances, and anything that's left over after that is added together to form your final pool of damage. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future rule reminders, please leave those in the comments as well. I'm going to make sure I leave links in the description to my other videos that deal with damage and damage calculations, so you can go view those and their descriptions if you need more guidance on this topic. And as always, I want to say thank you to everybody out there who supports me, whether that's through leaving your comments, sharing the videos, subscribing to the channel, subscribing to the Patreon. Thank you very much for everything you do to support me in this channel. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.